This is the Patriots Prayer Podcast. It's a tremendous show, one of the greatest shows in the history of the world.
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching the Patriots Prayer.
PPN, you're doing the right thing.
On the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
Falling, they all say, gather the faithful now and pray. The Patriots Prayer. The Patriots Prayer. All the wicks are trimmed, oil is filled to the brim. Climate change it somehow. I'm the radical now. America's falling, they all say. Gather the faithful now and pray. The Patriots.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to PPN Day 3 of CPAC, and what a ride.
It's been exciting, man.
It's been absolutely amazing, guys. And tomorrow the president will be here. Yesterday, Maurice and I were wandering around. We're done with the stream, just up and down CPAC, and I mean, we met a multitude of people. We were talking to people from Reuters, Newsmax, Next News. Maurice will be doing an interview later today on Newsmax. And also got a picture with President Melee.
Yeah,
Javier Melee. Yeah, Melee. Yeah, it's better. Yeah, Melee. I was able to get in that crowd too and get that photo shot. Been to a lot of different, campaign rallies, private events. How does CPAC stack up against, you think, in your opinion, against everything else we've done to date?
I've heard a lot that CPAC is like the old guard Republicans.
Okay.
And in all reality, it appears that CPAC is evolving, and they're kind of allowing the newer era of the younger men and women who are stepping up into leader positions in. I mean, example A, the fact that the Patriots Prayer Network is here, the fact that we're able to be on Media Row and to speak with all these fine people, and it doesn't feel like it's a boomer convention anymore.
Oh no, because we saw a lot of teenagers. We saw a lot of teenagers walking around, notebooks, cameras in hand, asking really grown-up questions.
Yeah.
I was blown away. Some of them, I mean, one of them was 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And guys, you wouldn't even imagine the kinds of questions a 17-year-old was asking. I was just taken back. I felt a little pride because it seems like we're finally starting to engage in the same ground war the left has been engaging in for years, which is grassroots movement. We have a motto. We have something that we can adhere to finally, because before the MAGA movement, there was nothing. I mean, there was nothing. There was just your Republican, and the Democrats had all the catchies, right? So now we actually have a movement, and I think that needs to carry forward past Trump.
Well, I would say we have a movement, but we're offering a mission statement out to the youth and the young men in particular to give them a chance for an adventure, basically, and saying that, you know, the Republican Party, the right wing, the conservatives, that they're more than just the all talk, no action party.
Oh,
that's what they've been for a long time. They've talked. I mean, if you go back and you listen to a Ronald Reagan speech, a lot of what he says in those speeches are the same exact debates that we're still having to this day. Meanwhile, it went from $500 million in debt back then to over $36 trillion in debt now.
But that's the hard part.
But the debate is the same. So whether it has been a Democrat or Republican, we've had the same issues that the public has been put in front of our face. Basically, the public has been given these whether it be abortion, tax reduction,
Talking points are the same.
Yes, the talking points have been the exact same for the last 50 years, and it blows me away that there's when I listen to that, I don't remember what Ronald Reagan's speech it was, but he brought up exactly the same talking points that we have today. And it feels like the American people have been disenfranchised for so long because they've been fed these talking points from both parties that haven't been doing anything except enriching themselves and then growing the size of government and then helping the government become its own entity that functions behind the scenes that we don't get to really partake in. That's why this Doge, this USAID exposure, and many other corrupt ways that they've been channeling our tax money, our tax dollars, into various groups, their own pockets, into accounts overseas that eventually get funneled back or feeding both sides of a war, funding the terrorist group or then funding the regime change basically by giving them defensive weapons and then giving the terrorists funding behind the scenes. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's been happening for.
Guys, as you can see right off our side here, you have Dr. Peter McCullough right there. So we're definitely we're in the heart of the action here on Radio Row at CPAC, and we must have not taken a break.
I like that work.
A lot going on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we're PPN, and so the Patriots Prayer Network. We have a total of, I think, about 11 shows across our network, 17 hosts.
Where are you based, though?
We're not exactly based anywhere. We're all over the country.
Where do you live?
Vegas and Washington.
Washington State. Yeah.
Washington State. Wow.
Yep.
I've been in North Dakota, but I never really.
So, Joseph, what media? Oh, careful. What media group are you with? We're videoing.
Okay. America Resurgent.
Okay.
With Dr. Joe Arminio, that would be me, the host.
There it is.
And I sort of would like to tell people about you.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely.
Have that conversation while I'm doing this.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm in Delaware. Don't hold that against me. Well,
I lived in Delaware and Luz. Yep. Yeah.
Guess who sits next to me in the pew once in a while?
Who's this?
The guy who thinks he was Commander-in-Chief.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, he used to live in Luz too.
Yeah.
I'll put this out there.
So we're yesterday, I think it was a time where we noticed that this was going to be a whole different ball game than even, I mean, with the exposure we've had going to Trump rallies, being backstage, being on stage, all the things that we've done up to this point. I would place this heads and tails above. It's not going to be my last CPAC.
No, I think that we'll be coming back next year, and I hear rumors that it's going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, here you go. Scan that as soon as it comes up. Scan that right there. So we're getting the word out about the Patriots Prayer Network. People are coming up to the booth, and essentially, I mean, guys, here's the thing, and let me just put it like this: the reception that we received here is much different than the one I thought we would receive. And what I'm talking about is like we're not seeing what we thought we would see. I mean, we couldn't go 10 feet without taking a picture with somebody. The connections that we made here are going to be ones that we take back with us for sure. Mindy Robinson's going to be coming by. We have invited Laura Loomer over to the booth. We have a couple of new hosts that came out of this thing, and it's just going to be a very impactful very impactful for the network for the foreseeable future. And it's just unbelievable because yesterday we were in kind of shock and awe. We were waiting for Elon Musk to come out, gave a great speech. Did you see him with the chainsaw on the stage? It was absolutely amazing. Kash Patel was confirmed. Big news there. And we're just, beside ourselves with the amount of attention. I mean, in the sadder news, United States lost in overtime yesterday to Canada. We were out for the game. We definitely stayed up to see that. And we're, like I said, we're just having a great time. Steve right now is recovering. He'll be here shortly. And so, all three of us have just had an amazing time, and we've had several other hosts of PPN that have came by the booth. We got to meet a lot of people in person, and to have so many of us in the same place at the same time with the same mission statement, just at all corners of CPAC, making the same type of connections. But what a reception to come in and show, and how many people knew me, knew Maurice, knew Steve, and to meet some of the people who actually watch the podcast and to see they're all here. They're all here. And it's just been a hell of a time, guys. It's been a hell of a time. And I look forward to this so much. Guys, would you let Mike in and have him get a mic here? Guys, we're going to have...
Hey, Maurice, how you doing? Well, how are you? Good, dude. Hi, I'm Mike.
We're going to have Mike McCormick join us. And I'll let him give his background. Mike, if you'll just... here.
Take off my thing so I look good.
There you go. So
this is
you put that on your lapel. There you go.
All
sir.
right, great.
All right. So introduce yourself.
So my name is Mike McCormick. Where am I looking?
You don't need, just between you and me. That's
okay.
all. They'll know.
All right.
They all know.
My name is Mike McCormick, and I worked at the White House for about a span of 16 years, from 2002 to 2018. So 1 year with Trump, but a bunch of years with Obama, Biden, and a bunch of years with Bush and Cheney. And I was a stenographer in the White House press office. So I was sitting right in the front row in that briefing room. Well, I was sitting off to the side of the front row for all those years recording. My job was to record what the press said between the White House principals and the press. Had to go in the Oval Office, had to go on Air Force One, Air Force Two, get a lot of travel. When I worked in there for the Obama Biden people, I worked mostly with Joe Biden, and that was back when he wouldn't shut up. Guy would talk and talk and talk. So
you obviously have some of the inside scoop. You were there.
Had a lot of inside scoop, and the thing was, like all of us, stuff was happening right in front of our faces that we thought was good, and it was really bad. So, for instance, I got a hold of the Hunter Biden laptop in 2021 and started writing a Substack called Midnight in the Laptop of Good and Evil. So what I did was I knew because I traveled with Joe to all these places, I knew where we were and what time we were. So I'd go into the laptop and I'd look at the dates of the emails, and I started seeing all the crime activity. So I wrote a book. It came out last year. It's called The Case to Impeach and Imprison Joe Biden. I took that, and the reason I wrote it was because earlier that in the summer of 2023, so coming up on 2 years ago, I had been interviewed by the Congress about all this stuff that I'd seen. I'd seen crimes. I was like, look, I reported crimes.
That's right.
And they didn't do anything, and the Congress didn't do anything. So I had to write the book. So that book came out, and they didn't impeach Joe Biden.
I think it's going to be different this time because I think people are we're fed up. Right now, I said the same thing. I'm glad to see some of this stuff being called out, but if I don't see accountability, I will be completely jaded about the entire system because the crime is off the charts. You know what bothered me the most about the Joe Biden years, his last presidency, was how all the media continuously said in unison, there's no evidence.
Yeah, right. And the thing was, I had the evidence. I actually went to the FBI and said, look, I'm a witness. This happened on an Air Force Two flight that I was on. I can show you that Joe Biden and Jake Sullivan conspired to commit malfeasance with Maurice. And I turned a witness tip into the FBI. They did nothing about it. That was 2 years ago. So 2023 in February.
Wow.
And because of that, I said, okay, they're not doing anything. I'm going to the media. So I went to the media, got a little bit of a splash with Fox News and a couple others.
I remember you on Fox. And as I told you yesterday, I said, weren't you? I remember you. I remember this.
Right.
You know, obviously, if you watch this, you know that I'm like a student of everything. I'm not particularly an expert in any one field, but I know enough to be dangerous in all of them. And so, but you had an up close and personal experience, and you sat there and you're recording these crimes and you're taking them down. You take them to the FBI. How did the FBI receive that?
They ignored it. And so did the press, except for Fox. I mean,
I'm talking about the actual meeting itself. You're in the.
I never got to see the FBI.
Really?
I sent in. They have a witness tip website. That's as far as I got, and I took screenshots of it. So I'm sending it in. Took a screenshot. Sent it in. Took a screenshot because I wanted proof that I actually sent it. Because at the end of your witness tip, it says, "We may or may not call you about this." Right. So they're just giving themselves
who
an
gets
out.
to decide that,
right? Exactly. That's exactly what happened. So now we got Cash Patel going in there, and I'm going to do another witness tip for the exact same crime, and we'll see what happens. Right?
You know what? I have a little bit of hope this time that you may be received very well.
Yeah.
We also have another host on our network, Nate Kane, who hosts the Raising Kane Show. Many of you know Nate Kane was the Uranium One whistleblower, and this is something that I think that he should consider as well, because he never had that opportunity either, right? I mean, his stuff, he went a little further, but never had the opportunity to actually get into a courtroom, bring Hillary in, and actually go about investigating the other crimes, the SEC fraud, the Benghazi incident, right? So a lot of people don't realize, because the emails were leaked, and Hillary was telling people in the emails, no, don't tell them that, tell them this, and she was manipulating the story, basically instructing people to lie about what happened. And Christopher Stevens lost his life.
Yeah, right.
He didn't get the security he asked for time and time again. He was turned down for any help. The people were caught flat-footed at the scene. And we were told it was about a mob who gathered outside due to an anti-Islamic YouTube movie, when in fact that was the lie Hillary told. Those people that were there who attacked our consulate were people they released from Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And
that was ugly.
That was extremely ugly.
They were, I was in the briefing room when that came out. So September 12th. 2012. That was just 6 weeks before the election. So they were in full panic mode to protect this guy. And the media, this is how complicit the media were. They showed us some outrage, and then it was gone.
It was gone, completely gone.
It was gone.
And that's typical for American press, because right now there are blackouts on quite a few things, even right now.
Right.
We're not hearing about East Palestine, Ohio. We're not hearing about Maui. We're not hearing about these things that just occurred. It's like, don't talk about that. Don't talk about that. And this is why I think the mainstream media, who's not far from us, really don't have the same respect, notoriety, and trust that the podcasters have today. And you can see that just being at CPAC.
Oh, yeah.
You can see that. I mean, if you go up and down this row, guys, here, I'm going to turn the camera around. Maurice is standing in the way. But listen, this entire row here, a lot of radio hosts in the area where we're at. But if you walk up, down, around the corner, even downstairs, you'll see, yes, there's sporadic mainstream media booths. But by and far, there are a lot of independent journalists here.
Yeah.
And they're the ones with the audience. They're the ones with the reach. They're the ones with the trust. And we've had a few interlopers throughout the last couple of days that have made their way in. Security did an amazing job at rooting them out. We were targeted a few times.
Yeah,
we don't care though, guys. Listen, if you wanna do that kind of thing to us, you're just giving us press. Please do, and I'm okay with that. But you being front row, center, taking down the words, seeing all this firsthand, investigating the hard drive on the laptop. How do you come away from that and still like, you're seeing behind the curtain as it were.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, it's got to be jading because you see all the world thinks one thing, but you see reality, and the gap between reality and what people think. There's a chasm, humongous chasm there.
So this is my current book. It's called An Almost Insurmountable Evil: How Obama's Deep State Defiled the Catholic Church and executed the Wuhan pandemic. So behind the scenes, what I saw was the CIA has been at work they were weaponized against our country during the Obama administration.
Excuse me. Flip this around, pointed at you. There we go.
The CIA was weaponized during the Obama administration against our country and the world. So it started with this infiltration into the Catholic Church. They installed Pope Francis. They used a corrupt cardinal, a guy named Theodore McCarrick. And the way I found this out was I went into the White House visitor logs that Obama had on his website, and I looked for how many times McCarrick visited. He visited a lot, and he visited with a guy named Dennis McDonough, who eventually became the White House chief of staff. The timing of these visits proved to me, as someone who'd been in the White House all these years, that they were planning something significant. And what they planned first was they wanted to put Pope Francis in. The next thing they planned was an invasion at the southern border.
So, yes, and he even said it before he did it. They telegraph their punches.
They do. They have to. The thing about public corruption is they have to tell us what they're doing because they've got to do it dark behind the scenes, but they've got to do it publicly. So we kind of agree, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. We want refugees in here. It's not refugees. It's new voters.
Yes.
It's not people who need help. It's people they want to pay to vote against the future of America.
And that is the reality. I mean, Biden said it's accepted. It's fact. You're going to be the minority.
Yeah, right. I listen to those speeches all the time. I had to type those all the time. He said it to La Raza, the Hispanic thing.
Yes.
He would say, yeah, there will come a time when European-based Americans will be 50%, less than 50% of the population. They were bragging about that. That was their goal.
What did you think when you saw Biden give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Hillary Clinton and George Soros?
Yeah. I mean, that's just him paying off past benefactors. Look, Joe Biden's an evil man. You have to understand the evil that's behind him. Everybody thought he was like a doofus. This guy was evil. And one of the things I talk about in the book is how he became the puppet master, not the puppet. A lot of people thought it was Obama who was the puppet master and Biden was the dummy puppet. It's the other way around. And the reason is...
This is a new perspective.
Oh, the reason is what happened with Biden. Biden came in 2008. So in June of 2008, a guy shows up in Washington named Larry Sinclair.
Know him very well.
Larry Sinclair has a story. I was smoking crack and driving around in Chicago with Barack Obama and having gay sex.
Yes.
Larry Sinclair does a press conference at the National Press Club in June of 2008. He gets arrested there. By whom? Beau Biden.
Beau Biden, the president's son, who had
then the presidential candidate. Actually, he was no longer presidential candidate. So Beau Biden arrests him, takes him back to Delaware, puts him on ice because he's got a warrant and there's a grand jury investigation, puts him in jail for 2 months. In the meantime, who gets selected to be vice president? Joe Biden. And when Larry Sinclair gets released in August, what's happened? They had the convention. Barack Obama and Joe Biden are on their roll to go all the way.
Here's the thing about Larry Sinclair's story. He passed lie detector tests, right? He passed lie detector tests, and he brought audio evidence from a recording that he took with supposedly Obama's previous boyfriend, the one who ended up murdered in the car in Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
So in the audio evidence that he brings forward, you hear, it's clear as a bell, says, you may not want to be talking about this stuff in the public. And it wasn't long after that he ended up a corpse. And then Larry Sinclair goes on and just disappears, media blackout again.
Right.
All the way up until the Tucker Carlson interview where this story was made. Reemerges, comes back out. And, you know, nobody's going to tell that story that Larry Sinclair told and go on national TV to do it. Go on one of the most popular press personalities shows that there is on the planet.
Right.
And say the things that he said so brazenly if he's not being honest.
Right. So I bring the Larry Sinclair episode isn't actually in this book. I talk about other things that I saw in the White House that told me that why. So you got to understand, I worked for Dick Cheney. So I understood the vice presidency preceding Joe Biden's. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at the way Joe Biden handled his vice presidency. He got all the plum assignments. He got plum assignments that the president should have handled. They all went to Joe. And I was asking myself, why is that happening? Mm-hmm. And that was happening because he was the puppet master, not the puppet. Yeah. So we get to 2014, and they run this CIA-based op into the Vatican, and they put the Pope Francis in there.
So you're saying that they had something to do with Ratzinger retiring?
Yeah. I don't know specifically that, but there's a lot of now speculation. There has to be investigation. I think J.D. Vance should be the guy to investigate it. Okay. J.D. Vance he became a Catholic after all of the McCarrick stuff happened, and he's new enough to the politics in D.C. that he's not compromised by the deep state. So he could probably go into and see what was going on in the CIA and get a good feel for it, and really want to get it fixed. They got to get the CIA out of the Catholic Church. They have to.
Well, the Catholic Church is not historically. They are not without their controversy.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot there.
The Bank of the Vatican laundering money for the mob.
Right.
P2. This is not something that's just foreign. That's never happened before in history. I mean, they are riddled with controversy from their conception as a church.
Right.
So this should not surprise anyone. And then we just recently heard the comments from the Pope that said walls are not Christian. And I put it to anyone, if the Pope is saying walls are not Christian, then what are those things standing around the Vatican?
Yeah, that's right. That's what he said recently to J.D. Vance. He said that back in 2016 when Trump was running. He said that exact same thing. We want to build bridges, not walls. I mean, he was used by the Obama-Biden people to be the moral voice against Trump. And Trump confronted him. I have a sequence in the book about sort of where the Pope was.
Directly. Trump confronted the Pope directly?
He came out and said, the Pope can't say the things about me. I'm a Christian, man. He can't say those things. So then the Vatican had to walk it back. And that was in February 2016 as they were running. Okay. And then Trump gets in, he gets elected, and then he goes to the Vatican in 2017. What happens in 2017, just a couple months after Trump is there? McCarrick is eliminated from view. The CIA takes McCarrick and basically silences him. They come out and they say, okay, he's done these terrible things in his past. We're investigating him. And within a year, he's completely kind of moved out of the picture, and he's out of, and then that's the CIA taking care of their own.
Interesting.
Cleaning up the mess.
Because when the Pope took office, this was no one ever expected a Pope to retire. That just doesn't happen.
Right.
There were a lot of things that this Pope did when he first came out. Things that he stated about the LGBTQ community, which he still does. he goes and he starts shaking hands with other religions, cult figures, takes a cult paraphernalia into the Vatican.
Right.
And you couple that with the statements that he's made, and it's pretty spooky. And
so let me give you a little bit about his personal history. So this is Bergoglio, right? He came out of Argentina. So in the 70s, there was a CIA op in Argentina called Operation Condor. And this,
I know about this. I've heard this name.
This comes out in the Two Popes movie. There was a Hollywood movie called The Two Popes. It came out in 2020.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was like Academy Awards and big thing. And it was basically about the retirement. It was the CIA version of what they wanted people to think about what you're questioning. They didn't want people to ask the question you're questioning. Did he really retire? Was he forced to retire? They wanted to make it look like, oh yeah, Benedict was a lovely guy and he just got tired and this lovely Pope came in and replaced him. That's what the Hollywood version is, but that's not, we don't know what happened, but I know that Bergoglio was put in there. So in the 70s, Bergoglio was a priest. And in this movie, there's a segment about his priesthood in the 70s. He is aligned with the far right-wing dictatorship in Argentina. They were backed by the CIA. That's what Operation Condor did. So he goes in and he's a Jesuit priest. The Jesuits were also doing sort of recruiting in the poor communities. That was a left-wing operation. So the CIA was interested in knowing who in the church was working for the communists, who in the church was working for the dictators.
Wow.
And Bergoglio goes to meetings with the dictators. He goes into their offices, and they talk about this in the movie. And what he's said, and so two of his priests get kidnapped and tortured and then released. And they've always blamed Bergoglio. They said he dimed us out.
Wow.
And so then he said, and this comes out in the movie, oh, I was trying to help them. I was talking to the authorities to try to get them released and helped. So no one's really sure what this guy, his background really is. But the CIA was there. They were working with this dictatorship, and so was Bergoglio. And then 30 years later, he's moving up the ladder into the Vatican with the help of the CIA.
Well, there's a more esoteric story about this Pope as well. If you've ever heard of the prophecy of the popes.
No, I've never heard that.
So there's a priest that, long time ago. He has this pilgrimage, he goes to the Vatican, and he's taking a vow of poverty, and he has all these ideas based off of what he's read in the Bible, what he's going to see or experience when he gets there. When he gets there, he sees lavish living.
Right.
They're very rich. They're all of these things that he didn't think Christians should be. He goes in, he rips his clothes. He's like, I'm just heartbroken over what I just experienced.
Right.
He goes on the bank of a nearby river and he sits down and he's praying and he has this vision and he writes it down and they dubbed it the prophecy of the popes. He writes down the name of every pope that will be in existence until the end of time. Here's the uncanny part. He nailed it. He called them by name, with the exception of Pope Francis. Now, here's where it gets crazy. Pope Francis, usually a pope takes the name of their mentor, right? Pope Francis come in called Pope Francis. The last pope's name is supposed to be Petro de Roma. So they were looking for someone to come in as the last pope, and his name was going to be Peter the Roman, Petro de Roma. Turns out, that was the name of Francis's mentor.
Oh, really?
So, according to this prophecy, Francis is the last pope.
Wow.
Just amazing stuff. I mean, that's just a very interesting side of it, to say the least. Those stories are just amazing. But and we don't say this to bash Catholics, right? So if you're Catholic, this is not, I'm not saying that anything bad about the parishioners, but it's like anything. It's like government. When you have a leader, you don't agree with every leader.
Right.
You don't agree with every government. You don't agree with every congressman. You don't agree with every senator. I don't agree with even everything Trump does. I like most of what he does, but I support him. But he's human.
Right.
So he's not without his flaws, and the left all too often likes to highlight Trump's flaws. They just don't do it honestly.
Right.
And that's
and they
the
use
thing.
the media to amplify it. And
So-
it's so awful.
Tell us what your experience is with Trump.
Okay. Well, let me first say about the Catholic thing. I am a Catholic. I consider myself a thin ice Catholic. I was away from the church for a long time. I came back about a year ago before I wrote this book, before I came across this information. And so I just saw this in these White House visitor logs, and I knew what I was looking at because I'd been in there, and I was like, wait a minute, this is what they did with this guy McCarrick. So what was your question now about Trump?
So you have all these experiences. You worked for the other administrations. Trump comes in.
Yeah. All right. So I'll give you a quick story about Trump. So Trump would go in, and he's like a businessman. And, the Bush administration, President Bush's schedule was so controlled. We got to see his schedule early in the day. So we saw what his daily schedule was. 1 hour meeting with this guy, 1 hour meeting with that guy, 1 hour meeting with this person, and then there was a briefing at a certain time in the morning and a briefing at a certain time at lunch. So then Biden and Obama came in. They were a little more flexible, but still pretty focused. Trump was all over the place, but focused. And he worked around the clock. Like, he didn't stop. When I was first in there, the media was shocked. They were stunned at how much they had to do. And this is when Trump was surrounded by basically deep state opposition.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't even have friends in his vice. President.
I worked with Pence. Pence was kind of a creepy guy, frankly. He was a little creepy there. Very religious on the surface, but behind the scenes. And he worked hard. He was a hard worker, and he did some really good things for Trump. But there was something about what they were doing quietly that was always there.
I'll just never forget the Tucker Carlson interview where he says how much we need to support Ukraine. And Tucker Carlson brings up, well, what about American interests? You're spending all this money, giving all these people weapons. Meanwhile, people here in America are in dire needs, dire straits. They need the help. And Pence's immediate knee-jerk response to what he just stated was, that's not my concern.
Yeah, I know. That's Pence.
That was the end of Mike Pence.
Right.
That statement, that interview ended his political career.
Right. Yeah.
Ended his political career. And then when you find out that his chief of staff, and you probably know this, was married to Peter Strzok's partner. And that relationship was used to target General Flynn.
Yes, right.
And that was
Pence
all
was
Mike
the guy
Pence.
that got rid of Flynn.
Pence was the guy.
Right.
And this was a time where I broke rank a little bit with Trump because he wanted to, well, you're my vice president. I don't necessarily agree,
Right.
but I'll go along with.
He kind of had to follow the DC rules that were in place, and everybody around him was telling him. Reince Priebus was still his chief of staff. So here's who replaced Reince Priebus, and this is in the book. Reince Priebus gets replaced by General John F. Kelly. Kelly was deep state. Kelly, when he was a general in Southern Command, was in charge of South America. That's when the Biden administration started a drug smuggling operation with the Hondurans and they knew it. They had the brother of the president of Honduras on DEA recording saying, we're doing smuggling in. They were bringing cocaine in by the ton. And so
There was another president who brought cocaine in by the ton too.
Right. Our boy.
Clinton.
Billy Jefferson.
Yep.
But what happened was that was in 2014. And Kelly was then a general. He was real good friends with this guy. So to address that, then all of a sudden, all these minors start showing up at the border in the summer of 2014. And this is when McCarrick and McDonough are having all these meetings. And that's what's in the book. So they bring this guy, Juan Orlando Hernandez, the president of Honduras, to the White House, knowing that he's smuggling drugs in by the ton. And they set up something called the Alliance for Prosperity, where they give $1.5 billion American dollars to 3 little countries in Central America. They gave it to Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. So $500 million goes to these guys they know are smuggling cocaine in by the ton. And what do they do with that? they bring in the Catholic Church. McCarrick is meeting with McDonough, and the Catholic Church gets pulled into it. And that's where the evil is occurring in the church. They partnered the church with cartel devils. That's unheard of. It's unseemly. So we got to get to the bottom of it. An investigation with J.D. Vance is the best way to do it.
Well, J.D. Vance came out the gate swinging. You heard the speech that he gave in Europe.
Yeah.
Started off he got a little bit of applause out the gate and says, I hope that's not the last bit of applause that I get. And then went about dismantling them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Completely, because they lost touch with their original values. And a lot of those values we shared, which is where we get our Constitution. And because, I mean, the roots of our country obviously lie in Europe originally. We're not without our flaws, but it seemed to have a worldwide just movement right after COVID to just redo everything. This reset word kept showing up, and all of a sudden we didn't have a voice. We couldn't talk about COVID. We couldn't talk about elections. We couldn't talk about this. We couldn't talk about that. The big tech companies were all in bed with the administration. It seemed, and then we weren't the only
ones. The
ones.
administration was the Biden administration.
That's right.
That was illegitimately voted in. And the reason they got voted in was because there was a pandemic. It just popped up. And that's the second part of the book, is how they devised the plan. I call it a plandemic. How they devised a plandemic through Biden operatives. And that started in 2014. So they're setting up this Alliance for Prosperity, and they're also setting up in 2014, in the fall of 2014, after the Ebola crisis hits Africa, they set up something called Predict 2, which is global health surveillance. $200 million goes from the USAID to global health surveillance. That's where they set up the Wuhan in gain of function research.
And we know this because we have the emails. We have the Fauci emails.
Right.
This has all been made public. This is not conjecture. And if we're not vigilant and investigating this and stopping this, not just from happening now, but from happening ever again, the fear is that it will happen again.
Well, we got to get the word out, and that's what this book is, and that's what your podcast is. I'm doing this on CPAC. We're getting the word out. I'm having pretty good success with getting people to listen to this. It's a significant story, so thanks for having me on and talking about it.
Well, absolutely. And
buy the book.
What people don't know is we're going to be having a lot of you on.
Good. Yeah, that's right.
So Mike is actually going to be doing something on the network, and he's got a bit of a different angle on it. And we'll talk about that more here in a second. Let's go to a commercial break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back, guys. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome to Shop with America, where the emphasis is on America. Our movement is to switch away from your shopping with the big box stores and the mega corporations back to supporting family-owned, made in America. We've been giving these big box stores our money every day for years. But what's happened is they've forced many small businesses to shut down. We call this the illusion of choice. We see all these products in these stores, but in reality, it's only a few companies that control it all. There are thousands of lawsuits for health damage because they put profit over our people. But there is another choice. We found a better way. There's a family-owned American factory with product integrity and have always done things the right way for the right reasons. And this company outperforms the big box stores. That's due to their month-to-month shopping club. They make everyday consumer products that we all use and buy again and again, like toothpaste, shampoo, coffee, and organic beef. Go to shopwithamerica.us today.
Dusty plains and broken dreams, cowboys and Indians on the same team. We got no masters, only our creed to break the chains and set us free. Riders on the prairie, wild and free, bows and arrows, cold
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
So, here we go. Get this back over there.
Yesterday, with parlor, so.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
It's pretty exciting.
Get it?
No.
So we just bought
Good enough. That's good.
which is the content streaming service that just streamed the Super Bowl. So
It's not picking up.
and getting all their people on board, that should be up in the next couple of weeks. So we're streaming these tests. Everyone's do you have this show? Just launched their TV in December, and we are working on it. It's just parlor.
It's moving too slow.
This is the Patriots Prayer Podcast. It's a tremendous show, one of the greatest shows in the history of the world.
This is Bryson Gray, and you are